Persona series is one full of very, very good characters, and lots of them, for matter of fact. However, when I first got into the franchise, around when Persona 5 came out, there was quite a bit of disdain toward one character in particular from one of the earlier games, Persona 3. And to some extent there still is, albeit there are more people now that appreciate her than they did back then. And that character is Yukari Takaba, a character I personally absolutely love. Now, we're not talking like, oh, she's the worst waifu in the game, but she's a good character. I mean, like, people who actually think that she's a bad character and think she makes the game worse in some aspects. And to an extent, I can understand why people would think this. She can be annoying, she can be bitchy and such. However, I don't think these are flaws with her as a character that make her a bad character. These are things that make her a really good character and make sense. Other things people don't like about Yukari are her family issues, which doesn't make sense. Why are you complaining about a character having real life issues? Like, what? Well, maybe you don't like how she handles her family issues, but get this, she's only like 16. So, you think she's gonna have the, like, understanding and stuff to deal with a situation like that in the best way possible, first time? Especially when it's something very emotional like that, when it relates to her entire family, but hey, who am I to judge? Well, I really like Yukari. She's a character I personally relate to on multiple different levels. And, well, I didn't see why people used to hate her. I do now, but that hasn't changed my opinion on her. I still love her, and I still think hating her is dumb, because she's a... You can hate her, you can dislike her, that's perfectly fine. But I don't think people should call her a bad character, because she is a very, very good character in terms of Persona 3 and in Persona as a whole. And a lot of the reasons why people don't like her, as I said, is because she's bitchy. They don't like her attitude. And that is primarily toward Junpei and Mitsuru, two characters in Persona 3. People don't like how she bickers with Junpei all the time and gives him, you know, a bit of, well, attitude. And well, believe it or not, I don't know if you know this, but friends argue a lot, and they bicker, and they have banter. And sometimes people go too far, and push each other's buttons a bit too much, and people get emotional. That's what being friends is kind of about, is finding each other's limits and knowing what not to push past. Because, well, you're friends, you don't want to hurt each other, but you've got to find what those limits are at some point, right? As for when it comes to Mitsuru, well, who wouldn't be jealous of Mitsuru? She's rich, popular, attractive, such and such. You know, she's the student council president. You know, like supreme ruler of the school. If you're going by anime logic, who wouldn't be jealous of her? She has everything. Like, she even has her dad still. For now, that's a spoiler for Persona 3. Her family's like relatively stable, and obviously, she's from a very big family. The Kiritsugu? No, the Kirijo group, who know a lot about the Dark Hour. And, well, it's not that Yukari is jealous of Mitsuru, she just doesn't trust her. She thinks there's some sketchy shit going on, especially with how much she knows and how much she's letting on, how much she's telling the rest of the group, compared to how much she really knows about what's going on. And she calls her out on that. She thinks that she's only recruiting people into C's because they're powerful, to use them to some greater end. And she calls her out on that. She calls everyone out on their bullshit. And is that wrong? I sure as shit don't think so. I mean, I do the same thing. If people I know are being dumb and are, well, chatting shit, I call them out on it. Like, what? But people don't like her for that. And then there's Aegis. Yukari and Aegis don't exactly get along. And it's understandable as to why. Aegis is introduced not long after Yukari and the main character have a very cute intimate scene, and then all of a sudden, the next day, there's this new girl that is just effectively all over her man. You can understand why she'd be a little bit pissed off at how clingy Aegis is being. You know? Like, that makes sense. I'm not being ridiculous, am I? And then we have probably the biggest flaw with Yukari's character. Well, I think this is less of a flaw with her character, and more of a flaw with the writing that occurs in The Answer. As much as I love The Answer as a post-game, I do genuinely like it, which might be a hot take. I don't really care if it is. Fuck you, I like my opinion. I like The Answer. A lot of people don't though. The Answer's writing isn't the best, I'll admit that. As much as I like it, it's pretty shit. Especially when it comes to how it handles Yukari. Yukari is the only character in The Answer that is a complete and utter idiot. Everybody else is relatively intelligent and has been sticking to the development they've had throughout the story. Whereas Yukari ends up regressing quite a bit. And basically, she wants to save the main character after the events of Persona 3. Everybody else is like, no, that's fucking stupid. Because of course it is. She is obviously wrong. However, she is the only character in The Answer that is obviously wrong. Nobody else says anything that is outright wrong. There is nothing to debate about what she's saying. For example, in Persona 3 proper, there is the choice and decision you have to make on whether you should accept that you're all going to die and live your days until then happily, or fight against it for the hope of a future where you can live out the rest of your life. In Persona 4, you have to make a decision between becoming the villain, quote-unquote becoming a villain, to take matters into your own hands, to take justice into your own hands, or, actually thinking about it. Maybe figuring out what's really going on, or potentially letting the real villain get away. In Persona 5, there is, should humanity be controlled, or should it be free? And then in the Royal, we have, well, should we all just be given everything we could ever desire? Is that what's right for humanity? But in Persona 3, The Answer, there is no decision to make. There is no debate to be had, no thought experiment to think on. It is just, no, saving the main character is dumb, because then we'll all end up dying, and everything we did up to this point would have been completely pointless. And I think that's more of a flaw with The Answer's writing than it is with Yukari as a character. She effectively just gets singled out in The Answer. It's everybody else, and then Yukari, which is a little bit unfair, but hey, it's just how The Answer's written, and how it goes. And yes, that is a problem with Yukari's character, because, well, she is in a position to facet her being written that way, so of course that is, quote-unquote, on her, but primarily, in my opinion, it is a problem with The Answer's writing. Another thing with The Answer, and why Yukari is understandably annoyed with Aigis or jealous of Aigis, is that Aigis inherits the wild card. In terms of story, Aigis had been with the main character for much less time than Yukari had, and Aigis was with the main character in his final moments. However, Aigis wasn't there for him in the hospital. Even after saying she would always be by his side, she wasn't there for him when he was, fully gone. So, does she really deserve the wild card? Does she deserve everything she's been given and obtained when she went against what she'd said? Understandably, Yukari is frustrated by this because, well, she doesn't think Aigis deserves the wild card to some extent. Obviously, it makes sense why Aigis gets the wild card. Hell, at the end of Aigis' social link, you quite literally touch the thing that makes Aigis Aigis, the Papillion Heart, which is effectively her soul, and leave your own DNA in it. So it makes sense as to how she inherits the wild card, because your DNA is quite literally imprinted on her. So it makes sense that she'll inherit the wild card. But when the other characters don't know this, it makes sense as to why some of them could potentially be aggravated by this. And Yukari isn't the only character that gives other people shit, or even gives the main character shit. Junpei, he argues with you, he bickers with you, he resents you, he's jealous of you. He doesn't understand why you're the hero, why you're so much better than him. And yet everybody loves Junpei. Understandably, he's a fantastic character, as is pretty much everybody in Persona 3. In my opinion, at least. And yet people love Junpei but give Yukari flack, when in reality, their relationships with other characters are actually quite similar. And how they argue with people is quite similar. Hell, it's not just Yukari bickering with Junpei. Junpei bickers back. Because they're friends. What do you expect? All in all, you don't have to like Yukari. You don't even have to think she's a good character. I know I said earlier that you shouldn't call her a bad character, but if you think she is, well then I can't change your mind if you still do. Or maybe, well, at least I can't. Someone else might be able to if they're more eloquent with their wording and can explain things better than I can. But just maybe think about it more. As, well, I evidently haven't with this video. But I think the primary reason why people don't like Yukari is they don't like seeing their fictional characters, these fantastical people in this fantastical world doing fantastical things, dealing with real life issues, things that they can potentially relate to. And when they see a character handle something that they personally have in their life, for example, say you have family issues and you see how Yukari handles it and how eventually she resolves that relationship with her mother, and perhaps in your life you haven't sorted out the relationship issues you have, you might think that it's potentially an attack on you, that it's saying there's a problem with you, the player, and so you'll have, problem with that. There's insecurity there. Not to say that everybody will think that, but there is definitely that aspect of it, of when you see characters having real troubles, you can relate to those and see yourself in them. And if this character is able to do something that you yourself haven't been able to, it can make you feel like shit. It can make you feel insecure. And so we'd much rather see them do these fantastical things that are far beyond what normal people can do, so that we don't have the opportunity to feel that insecurity, because, well, they're fictional. They're doing these fantastical things, like doing parkour in a magical mind universe where there are monsters and evil teachers and stuff, you know what I mean? But Persona is a series where the characters are genuinely emulating real people. I mean, obviously they aren't real people, they're pixels and data in a game, but they're effectively as close as you'll get to real people, because they are very well written, and they are very human characters, and that's why I absolutely adore Persona 3, even though I've yet to play it. Basically, what I'm saying is, think more about what you dislike, and why you dislike it, and whether it's because the thing you dislike is actually bad, or perhaps you have other reasons to dislike it. Maybe more deep-seated reasons. I really shouldn't be getting into psychology. I'm not a psychologist. I've never even thought about being a psychologist or done any sort of education toward it. And yet here I am talking about the human mind and other people's insecurities. I must sound like a pompous arsehole. I definitely do. But hey, whatever. If you like this video, leave a like, comment, sub, hit the notification bell. You know the usual YouTube thing. And with all that said, I've been Animosity, you've been you, and I hope to see you all next time for another video. Ta-ta, for now.